my bet was that 80% is using some set, and the 20% it's like a tail, and it turned out that there's only a tail. So we got responses from over 250 funds, and actually everyone was putting something else into the survey. So like there are over 250 different tech stacks people are using. And if you add the fact that many of the funds are also using their own tools, then it's really very hard to copy any of those tech stacks. There are even more than 180 tools that we identified.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mirto Lalakos. I spent the last 4 years running the accelerator that launched over 50% of the world's new venture capital funds. And I just launched the Emerging VC to continue helping emerging fund managers and leaders in venture capital to continue growing and establishing themselves as the top funder to founders who align with their investment thesis wherever you guys are in the world. Iwona, thank you so much for being here. Iwona is the co-founder and general partner at AGX. She is a scientist turned VC. She previously ran the Funding Box Deep Tech Fund as a managing partner, and she trained Stanford's Science Management Commercialization Program. And at AGX, Iwona co-authored the VC Tech Stack Pulse 2026 alongside Venture Connections and Women in VC. Big shout out to both of those organizations. By the way, you guys have been spearheading efforts supporting VCs for a long, long time now. And closing the parenthesis here, but the Tech Stack Pulse 2026 is the industry's first benchmark survey of how over 250 firms actually build their operational stack. And so this report was also conducted in a completely non-biased way. It was not sponsored, it was not commissioned, and it's taking a completely neutral stance on what VCs are using as their tech stack. So Iwona is kindly joining us today to deep dive into the survey results. So Iwona, thank you so much for being here with us today, and congratulations for the amazing work that you did in putting this report together. I'd love to pass it over to you to further introduce yourself for everyone here and tell us a little bit more about this report.
Yeah, so hi everyone, and Myrta, once again, thank you for having me. The motivation to have this report was, like twofold. First of all, I'm a member of different VC communities, and I've seen like a number of times those questions popping up. What are you using for admin? What are you using for CRM? And people were responding, but then you never ever find those messages again, so I had a feeling that there's a lot of going on, and there is some best tech stack we could use nowadays. The second one, I'm also an emerging manager, and we were setting up the tech stack for ourselves. So I thought it's not possible to gather all those informations, and all the people I talked to, they were using different tools. So we said, okay, so let's do something for community, but also for ourselves, and let's ask everyone, what are you using? And I can tell you that the results. So my bet was that 80% is using some, let's say, standard set, and the 20% it's like a tail. Maybe it's not a tail, maybe there are front runners, but certainly there is some kind of standard. And it turned out that there's only a tail. So basically, we got responses from over 250 funds, both emerging funds and also huge funds they have half a billion or over half a billion in under management. And actually, everyone was putting something else into the survey. So like there are over 250 different tech stacks people are using. And we made a bet because we wanted people to make it very easy to answer those questions, we made a bet in every category, and we put, some names that we thought it will be easy for people just to check some boxes and go to the next question. And only in some cases, people will fill in something. It turned out that in some questions, almost 70% people filled in those open questions. And it turned out that they were really engaged and they were sharing really a lot about their tech stack. And if you add the fact that many of the funds are also using their own tools, then it's really very hard to copy any of those tech stacks. So I would say that there are even more than 180 tools that we identified. Having said that, if I have known the results, I probably today asked different questions in the survey. So the purpose that we had, like, this is the standard tech stack. If you want to be different, you choose from the cafeteria of other tools. Well, it's not really quite what we have after publishing this report.
I think you did such an incredible job, Iwona, because you're basically categorizing all of the different areas of operations of a venture capital firm, between CRM to portfolio management to deal sourcing. And then you're basically giving us a ranking of the tools that have been used. You also have the demographics in there. I mean, oh my God, like I looked at this and I was like, this is so comprehensive. It's so transparent. I know all of the data, I know all of the information in here. It was amazing. So I was wondering, could you tell us, when you opened the results, you started kind of digging into it, like what were some of the most surprising findings for you?
The first one was that I've already mentioned, that there are no two VCs using the same tech stack. The second one was about the values. So, we asked about tools, but if you read the answers, and this is what we were trying to put in those black boxes with the insights, that people really care about the outcome. So even though we haven't asked about the outcome, they were putting it into. Just to give you an example, we asked also about the tools that you've recently were testing and have decided to implement or decided not to implement or to introduce to your company. And surprisingly enough, at least for me, many people said it didn't went through the compliance, so it does not fulfill the standard. Even though if you look for the tools that were adopted, the most important thing was the set of features. So, I think even though we asked very concrete questions about the tools, we also got the answers about the values of the VCs, and what people are really care about. So this was also kind of surprising.
Absolutely. And, when I was looking at it, one thing that really kind of shocked me was the level at which tools like Excel and Google Sheets are still very predominant when it comes to like DD. I think it's got number one place. But still in other areas, there's still the fund managers are still hacking tools together. They're using Claude, they're using Excel. And I thought that was quite surprising. And I wonder if you could kind of touch on what that means for the industry, what that means in terms of like how VCs are putting together their tech stack.
Yes, I think if you look at DD and analysis, you just need two things. You need data, and then you need an engine that analyzes those data. So I don't think that Excel is explicitly used for the due diligence per se. It's more in this category of keeping the data in one place. And why it's surviving, for years now, I think it's very easy to export and import, and Then again, if you think about the lifetime of the VC fund, which for the simplicity of the discussion, let's say it's 10 years from the moment you start to fundraise till the moment you finish your distribution, you need a tool that will survive those years. And I think the tools and Excel, it's a great example of that. It's that you can really import, export, and keep the data between different tools if you decide to change them. Now, if you think about Claude or ChatGPT, they are not designed for the VC, but the analysis that we do, we compare, let's say, the startup against the world. We make a bet. What will future look like? And then you need kind of intellectual partner who knows something about the world and can challenge your assumption, can challenge your conviction. And for that, you need the representation of the whole world. You cannot have a tool, I think, designed only for discussing with the VC. Of course, many of us joined today, but it's still a very small asset class if you compare it to other investments. So I do not think that everyone would wish to build a tool designed only for VCs. And I think this gap is filled by those proprietary tool, let's call it like that, or own tools that different funds are building.
Yeah, and I think that's such an important point, right? The question of how big is this market, because the size of the market will dictate the number of tools and organizations that are actually building for this market. And when I started working in this space 4 years ago, there was like one, maybe two companies building products and services for emerging VCs. I was lucky enough to be part of one of them. And the market is growing right now. And with the market growth, there comes this population of tools that are being built and platforms and stuff like that. And it's crazy to see how market size is really driving diversity and volume of tools that exist for this market. And I think it's super interesting to see. And I think this is also reflected in the fact that there's this huge fragmentation still. Like there's very few kind of winners within the main categories of tools that you would be using as a VC. And funds are still using their own tools or hacking their things together.
Yeah, and also, the other thing that's also surprising, many people claim, or this was what we got from the survey, yeah, that they wish to have end-to-end solution. Now, there are solutions that claim to be end-to-end, and still, even so, now you might wonder, okay, they do not have enough, I don't know, marketing adoption, people do not know about them, so maybe that is the reason. This we do not know from the survey, but maybe that's the reason people are not aware about them. On the other hand, if you look at users who are using those tools that claim to be end-to-end, they still are using different tools as well. So I think there is a gap between what is designed for VCs and what people are really needing. And this is interesting because very often you also hear that those end-to-end solutions are designed and built by the VCs, for other VCs. So I think this is also interesting. And depending on the size of your fund and the management fee that you have, you can try to invest and try different tools. But I think most of us really want to focus on the investments itself, not on checking different tools and feeling this constant FOMO, or should I use something else? Or maybe, something else is there. At some point, you just have to decide, okay, this is my tech stack for now. And, decide for, I don't know, half a year. I'm not touching this anymore. Otherwise, I think, and this is also what the results are showing, otherwise you could really fall into this trap of analysis paralysis, or maybe I should try this or that. the data shows that people are using different setups and they somehow are happy with them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, the different setups is also, venture capital is still a diverse industry. I mean, the business model is more or less the same across the funds, but you need to be different in how you run the firm, how you position yourself, how you scout deals, how you do diligence deals in order for there to be that kind of diversity within the market that will allow you to not, that we're not all looking at the same deals. We're not all using the same tools to due diligence, right? There is kind of a level of differentiation that's
Yeah, but I can agree here with due diligence because you might have, let's say, different taste or because of your thesis, different things might be important. But like I can't really still not understand how people could use 50 different CRMs. Why? I don't know. Because how can you be different from someone else using a different CRM? This is something that it's not entirely clear to me. And unfortunately, this report does not answer this question as well. So I do understand that you might be different because you source deals differently, because you do different analysis, and eventually you make a different bet. But can you be different because of using a different CRM? That's kind of the question that I would like to find answer to.
Yeah, yeah. For example, so many VCs are using Bordy, whether it's asking for introductions to LPs or finding founders or trying to staff their teams. I mean, and Bordy has become a tool in and of itself. So Ivona, you touched on how you can get carried away being a VC. A lot of VCs also come from a techie background and they've been entrepreneurs before they're builders inherently. And so they're coming into this and, their instinct is to build everything and hack things together and then change the stack and then optimize it. And I get it, like you can get a little bit carried away, but is there a category of tech that that's a must for the fund versus stuff that you don't think you need from day one and you can kind of hack together before actually like paying for a platform?
Yes. So I think unfortunately it's the VC is more like a chess play than, a waterfall. So I don't really think you can think, okay, now I think of fund admin, and then I will think about how to deal source, and then I will think how to analyze, and in half a year I will think about something else. I think unfortunately you have to think about all those things together. Having said that, we didn't have an explicit question. So we had a question about the automation. But what really pops up from the answers that people were giving, that the connectivity is something very important. So this was not classified by us as a category itself, but we even the survey is closed now. We have this wish list, and there are some questions that you might answer. What you would like to have, and most of the answers go to this connectivity category, which basically says that even though you do not have the system that, it's end to end, if you have enough good connectors, you can actually have it, or you can patchwork it in a way. So I think it's very important if you think about any tool, whether it can easily communicate with other tools that you have. Otherwise, instead of saving some time, you will add up your time to just, deal with this tool. I think whatever you choose, the connectivity between those tools and the data exchange is extremely important.
What do you think? What do you think about how the introduction of AI agents will impact how VCs will operate going forward?
This question really, so answer to this question goes really beyond what we've asked. And I would really like to avoid being a prophet in this matter. But certainly, if you look at the results themselves, you see that already today there is a big gap between what's possible and this what people are currently using. So we have this, we call it trends, where we asked about, some automation or usage of AI. And we asked basically to question, like, this is the scenario of automation. Let's say you would like to have an LP button. So like today, it's possible to generate constantly the reports for LPs. Would you like to have it, or you already have it? And many people answer that they would like to have it, but much less people answer they already have. So I think there is a big discrepancy between what's possible and what people are really using. The reasons for that might be, different source. This we haven't questioned, but speaking from my own experience, I think the limiting factor is time. Really, to introduce any of those tools or any of this automation that eventually will save your time, first you have to invest your time into it. So I think if all those AI wishes are fulfilled and everyone is using them, I think that decision process making might be faster. On the other hand, it's very hard to forget today about the hallucination. It's a one factor that you still have to take into account. So you cannot 100% rely on the AI outcome. And also, many responders mentioned that they wish to trust AI, but they can't really today. And I think there's also another aspect. Even though we've explicitly asked about the tools, so IT tools, many people mentioned newsletters, personal connections, and the conversations. We even got the answer own brain as a tool. So I think we cannot forget that this is still very relationship-based business. And I think no matter what happens with AI, this relationship will still stay and might be a differentiating factor between different funds.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's another question. I kind of want to show this, Iwona, if you don't mind. So the question is, what was the sample for this survey? So I'm going to put it up here. I'm going to try to present this, but please jump in if I'm doing a horrible job. But I think there was some good diversity here in terms of who responded within the firm. So you had almost half of them were from the investment team, or GPs, but you had some ops people too in there, right? GPs, they usually do everything. So, I think that provides for that diversity. And then you probably had some larger fund sizes in there, which here again, you can see it's quite well diversified. Then you have predominant responder base within Europe, 22% in the US, and then 3% rest of the world. And then you also broke it down in terms of where they are in terms of their fund journey. I don't know if you want to add anything here, but I thought it was quite well distributed.
Yeah, and I think also the engagement is shown by the fact that none of the question was mandatory, because we really didn't. At least I hate when there is some question that is mandatory and I don't understand. I'm still forced to answer it. So and still, most of the responders responded to almost all the questions. So I think, of course, you can always ask whether we could ask more funds, but I think the answer would be that instead of 250 different tech stacks, we would have 300 different tech stacks, or 350. So I don't think that, really expanding this group would really change something. I really wish we had more answers from Asia and Africa and, other parts of the world, but, we also didn't want to run this survey for months. So, yeah.
Yeah. And one other thing that I found was quite interesting is that you only had 30% of your responder base having a fund that's less than $50 million. So the funds were kind of like medium to large predominantly. And then here you have primary drivers for rejection of a tool, and pricing is number one. And I thought that was quite interesting because either it means that the industry is overpricing the tools right now, or it means that VCs are still, are very price sensitive. I don't know. Do you have kind of any idea of what's going on here? Like, why is price so important?
Think you cannot look only at the price, because if you also look at the picked category, so this is the factors or how long people are testing the tool before they decide to integrate it into the tech stack. I think there are few factors important. People really think about it as an investment, not only the cost. That's why they are, most people are testing the tool for over a month to decide whether to use it or not. And then the pricing is important in the sense that once you decide to use a tool, I assume you will use it for the lifetime of the fund. So yeah, the cost is not only for today, and the different tools have different cost structure. So you have to budget it somehow into your existing budget. So, and then it doesn't really matter whether you are a big fund or a small fund. You just have to budget it.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. But it was also interesting for us. Just maybe a short comment to the DNA. There were assets under management. So it might happen if your firm has 2 or 3 funds, those assets under management add up. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was not the size of the fund, current size of the fund, it was assets under management.
Then guys feel free to jump in.
Sure, yeah. No, my point was, thanks, Iwona, for the awesome report. It's really cool. Really appreciate you bringing some transparency to the VC stack. It's awesome. My point, I'm Connor Satley with Decile Group, is that many micro VCs might have filled in the survey, right? If you have an annual budget of fees of 100K or 200K, meaning 5 or 10 million under assets for a fund one, you just don't have any money to pay for, like, here's your 20K subscription to Crunchbase or something, right? Like, it might be a reflection of the fund sizes that filled it out. I'm curious if you have the data on that.
Yeah, so I think, being a emerging manager, a small fund as well, deliberately, you have to think about it. And I think you really, again, you can think about it as about cost, or you can think about it as an investment. Unfortunately, this what we cannot show today, because I think the data is not existing yet, is whether your VC tech stack really influences your DPI. Because this, we will check it in 10 years. I think this is the ultimate answer. What is the best tech stack? Or the combination of tech stack and people. The report or the survey doesn't give you this answer. I don't think there's any prediction that might tell you what is the best combination of the tech stack used to translate into the best DPI you can achieve. I'm not really sure you can test on that. That's why I think as an emerging manager, depending on the size of your team, you have to take into account different factors that influence your ROI. In my case, I cannot speak for you, but in my case, it's time. Because if I spend too much time on one topic, I probably do not meet enough funders, or don't think enough, or have not enough time to meet enough LPs. So for me, the most important factor is time. So for example, while using the CRM that I've already pointed out, for me it was important that I do not have to transfer the data from my mailbox to some external tool, because the mailbox is the tool that's most heavily used by me. So I do not want to have another task in my workflow to forward or transfer the data somewhere else. So for me, it was, for example, an important factor. So I think if you have limited budget or limited resources, you have to think, what is, the ROI that you really want to bet on.
Yeah. And Ivona, I know a big thing for, or question, I guess, for you here was like, to what extent are these tools actually contributing to the performance of the fund? And so, you just told us kind of what for you is most important and where you see the most kind of ROI and probably what's going to move the needle. But like, to how important do you think the tech stack is nowadays in terms of building for a firm that is going to be successful and that is going to have the DPI?
But again, you're coming back to this chicken and egg problem, because we have so many tech stacks. You do not have enough statistics to say this tech stack is working better than the other one. Now, the only thing you can do, you can just follow different metrics and decide upfront which are important for you, review them after some time, and decide whether it's really working for you. So you have different steps in your fund. It's a fundraising, it's getting access to the deals you wish to have. Then it's the speed of growth of the companies you invested. So at different time points, you measure different KPIs. And in order to do that, you just have to have data. So I think it's important to be self-conscious, like what you really want to achieve. So I think it's very easy with this overwhelming number of tools to be very busy, even though they are supposed to help you to be not. But the question is, does it really translate to better outcome? And the better outcome might mean different things for different people. Some people would like to spend more time on meeting founders in person, but some of you might want to spend more time in having a very deep analysis of the market. I think both might work, depending on what is your investment thesis and what is your bet on.
And Iwona, I want to come back to something else that we were discussing when we were, just tearing this report apart. One of the things that you said that was so important was kind of the security aspect of using all of these tools. So can you share with us a little bit what was on your mind and like to what extent you found security, what was important in the tool? Was it measured, or is it something that you're going to be doing in the future?
Yeah, so actually, this is one of the main reasons why people rejected the tools that they were testing. And when I started to talk about it after I got the results of the survey, I see kind of avoidance. So, the answers that I get is, oh, but everyone is, putting everything into the chat. Oh, I don't think that my tiny fund, that the data will pop up somewhere else at the end of the world. So I think it's a very hard topic, how to sandbox the data. And this is something we do not know how to solve. So we either go into the fear and we, reject some tools. The other side of the spectrum is just to dismiss it. Oh, I don't care, like everyone is doing that. So I think this is an important topic, and it will come after us meaning the community, because you have different time points when you put confidential data into those big, and they undergo the analysis. Of course, at the very beginning, you just get a deck. Okay, I would like to know something about market. That's easy. But at some point, you're starting to get the data about the company, how it's performing, whether it's growing or not. And you still want to benchmark this company against others, but you are receiving, if you're, for example, a board member, you are receiving confidential data, and you really have to think. And now, Connor, coming back to your question, you want to test a new tool, but you do not want to spend money on it. On the other hand, this is this chicken and egg problem, should I use it first or should I trust it, and really pay attention whether this data remains confidential. And I think this is something that nobody wants to touch. At least all the funds I talked to, everyone is aware of the problem, but the reactions are different, as I told you.
Iwona, I wanted to ask you, hopefully this is not the first and last report, but the first of many reports that you're going to be doing like this and surveying the industry, seeing how these trends are evolving. So assuming you're doing one again, how would you do it different? What other kind of areas would you want to look into?
Yeah, I think it would be interesting to ask about the values, So first of all, the most interesting thing for me would be to fast forward 10 years from now and to know which of those tech stacks perform best. So this would be, but it's kind of not possible. Now, coming back to the values, I've already mentioned to you that some of the things are visible, like hallucination is visible, data leakage not necessarily is visible today. So I think I would really like to probe the community about the long-term values. Another thing, because this is also by design a snapshot of what people are using today, we really didn't dig into the question how you foresee the migration of data. Let's assume that you are using some AI tool today. In 2-3 years, you decide to use something else. You still have this layer that was kind of produced by AI. It might be annotation, it might be a benchmark. How do you export this? Does it stay with the tool? I don't really think anybody started to do those exercises on a large scale. How to migrate the data, this layer produced by AI to another engine, that this is, or this outcome for AI. I think this is also important, and this would be something I would like to probe if I had the chance to ask community again. And another aspect that we didn't dig into are those custom tools. Because, we also are using some custom tools and, it's really exciting when you build them, but you have to maintain them. You have to think about it, that they have to stay compliant, they have to be up to date. Do you really have it into your budget? Have you thought about it? And then if you use, I think it becomes even more complicated if you use external providers. Will you be dependent on them? How are you gonna see, those customary connections or connectors that you build between those different tools? How much time and effort and money you want to invest in maintaining them? I think those are the questions that were out of scope of the survey, but it would be really great to know in terms of the fact that so many VCs are using their custom tools as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have two final questions. If you had a magic wand and could make an end-to-end VC tech tool appear out of thin air, which most closely corresponds to what VCs want? What are the key 2 or 3 aspects of the tool you'd focus on?
I think time would be the most important. The second one, that I can pass it to someone else, or in other words, scale. Sometimes something happens, family stuff, and you do not want to have a break. And the third one would be something that makes my fundraising easier. If there is a magic tool that people could see how our AGX funds is great, this would be the other aspect, because you can't really. So today, I don't really see how from external view you can see the excellence of your fund through your tech stack. Coming back to this point about the DPI.
Yeah. And yeah, there's a lot of people and, new companies that are actively, or old companies moving into the space that are actively working on fundraising and making that easier. So yeah, totally. Awesome. And then let's do maybe one last one very quickly. Can you talk a little bit about LP expectations for VC tech stack reporting, auditing, et cetera? I know LPs will prompt you about your back office and your fund admin provider. They want to know that everything is compliant, the books check out, everything is correct. You're not making errors on kind of like the calculations and stuff like that. So that's all super important to them. Anything else that you've seen from your end, Iwona?
So I mean that things that you've mentioned are kind of basics. So this is your kind of fiduciary duty to report to the LPs. The constant question that I get from my final one LPs is about the prediction, but this is the whole game, I would also wish to know what is my end CVPI. But in our case, this is something that we have to have, but we are not extensively asked about our tech stack.
Yeah, exactly.
But I
Awesome.
think that without the efficient one, you can't really function today.
Iwona, thank you so much for taking the time and doing this with us today. I mean, the work you must have put into finding the respondents, putting this dashboard together. I mean, oh my God, thank you for doing this.
And also thank you to everyone who really responded to those answers, because I was just gathering them and presenting them to you, but really the real work was done by people who answered all the survey. We promised a 7-minute long survey. It was kind of longer.
Amazing. I love it. All right, everyone. Thank you once again for being here. Thank you, Iwona, for doing this. I want to give a big shout out as well to Women in VC Venture Connections as well for co-authoring this alongside you. We're going to link to the report as well in case you want to have that handy. And yeah, thank you all so much for being here and hopefully see you next time.
You
Thank you, Iwona.